oh dear, I shall be too late.
She snatches up her stockings and pulls them on, slipping the blue dress over her head and fastening the pinafore around her waist somewhat subdues the panic that scrambles her thoughts, but she makes the mistake of glancing at her pocket watch.
Oh, my ears and whiskers, how late it's getting!
There's almost no time for her to slip on her Mary Janes and dash out the door. As it slams shut, it shakes the nearby writing desk enough to dislodge a loose stack of cards, which cascade down towards the floor. Most of them land messily on top of a dusty top hat, but a few of them, including the Queen of Hearts, land next to a digital clock. It reads 3:59 a.m. On the desk, a dormouse sleeps peacefully in a teacup labeled "Drink Me." The cuckoo clock that hangs on the wall, in addition to the 6 watches, 2 alarm clocks, the ancient grandfather clock in the far corner, and the digital clock, all alarmed in time to the second, simultaneously tick forward to 4 a.m. The resulting commotion of light and noise wakes up the dormouse, but it also disturbs the slumber of the 3 hedgehogs in the other cups, the 3 flamingos in the other room. Their squawking is quite cacophonous at any hour, but at 4 in the morning it is positively deafening. And 1 very annoyed white rabbit.
Alice,
he sighs, climbing out from under the top hat and brushing off his wrinkled waistcoat. He flits around the house, turning off all the alarms, grumbling under his breath the entire time. Only when the echoes of the grandfather clock's last resounding bong are ringing through the air does the rabbit finally retreat back beneath the Mad Hatter's hat. He reappears, mere moments later, having decided that if he's awake, he might as well have a snack. Hopping onto the dining table, much to the distaste of the disgruntled dormouse, and sniffing around, he finds a small pastry on a plate. Popping it into his mouth and smacking with satisfaction, the rabbit hops back down towards his hat, aiming to sleep for another good 2, 3, maybe 11 hours, when all of a sudden his head hits the ceiling and his paws are as big as refrigerators and, he sits down in shock and disbelief, thumping to the ground with the magnitude of a small earthquake and snapping the dining table in half. He barely notices the teacups and hedgehogs go flying because out of the corner of his eye, the little slip of paper that reads, "Eat me," flutters innocently to the floor. The white rabbit lets out another deep, long-suffering sigh. This time, the hedgehogs, the flamingos, and even the dormouse, in a rare moment of wakefulness, join him in his lament.
Alice.
They file into the usual meeting room on the usual Monday, but over 22 years in this line of work has taught Jiminy Cricket that this group is anything but the usual. But after all, he thinks with a momentary burst of pride, they only entrust the best therapists with the most extraordinary patients. Jiminy always arrives early so that he has plenty of time to hang up the sign on the door that reads in small, neat lettering, "Weekly meeting for the magical organization rehabilitating permutated humans." Then he takes a seat in one of the chairs that have already been arranged in a circle, and waits. First, in struts Pinocchio, his movements never quite completely natural. They have, however, gotten much smoother over time with the rehab done on his joints, thanks to the excellent work on Chang's behalf. Jiminy resolves to congratulate him at some point. Next, Queen Eleanor enters, beautiful and regal as ever, her eyes adorned with laugh lines that seem to deepen with every session, Jiminy notes. The mother-daughter therapy has gone over well, it seems, and she's also made more progress than anyone else at the morph meetings. Tiana arrives alone.
Naveen's coming. He's running a little late,
she tells Jiminy, who nods. Jack drifts in shortly afterwards, all gangly teenage limbs and smelling faintly of cow manure. He's let his hair grow out messily over his eyes since all those years ago when he first stumbled into a wrong session, and never missed one since. As always, he's barefoot and greets Jiminy with a toothy smile. Little noises punctuate the momentary quiet as those already present find their seats in the circle. The scrape of a chair leg, a cough, the nervous scuffing of shoes against the floor. The growing tension seems to swell throughout the room, as everyone, even Jiminy, begins to feel slightly uneasy. The ensuing awkward silence only serves to amplify the dramatic entrance made by none other than
Prince Nabun of Maldonia.
He proclaims his identity, as if anyone needs reminding, as he throws open the door with a grandiose flourish before spinning around and holding it open for the people behind him. Jiminy wonders why they can't just open the door themselves before his jaw drops as the answer appears in the doorway, dressed in full mermaid costume, carried bridal style over the threshold by a rather apologetic-looking Prince Eric. They're almost ready to begin. Jiminy straightens himself up in his seat, watching the door expectantly. Mulan strides in briskly, talking animatedly with an equally passionate Cinderella who has her hands cupped together against her blue cashmere sweater. A closer look gives Jiminy the briefest glimpse of a wriggling white mouse trapped between her fingers, and he thinks, ah.
Hey, Jim. Session got canceled. Okay if I sit in on this one?
Sure thing, Cindy, and it looks like everyone else is here who's supposed to be.
He adds, with a nod and smile of acknowledgement towards Jack.
So, how's everyone been this week?
At the same time, Tiana and Mulan, who are Ariel's roommates, immediately launch into angry tirades about Ariel's latest relapse, during which she obstinately refuses to take off her tail or exit the bathtub.
Even though she can't actually swim in it.
Mulan throws up her hands.
So she just sits in the water for hours, and no one can go to the bathroom. We had to use the neighbors.
Wait,
Pinocchio interrupts.
don't you guys live next to the 7 dwarves?
They have the tiniest toilets ever.
Tiana confirms sadly.
Excuse me.
Jiminy raises his voice.
For those of you who find this funny, I would like to remind you that it is not acceptable to make light of others' troubles. If you are not willing to remain respectful of every person in this room, you're more than welcome to leave.
The smattering of giggles that had been spreading around the circle before Jiminy spoke dies out quickly.
Thank you.
He says, looking pointedly at Cinderella, whose smile immediately slides off her face.
Please continue.
Jim, I'm sorry.
Ariel says, biting her lip. Jiminy shakes his head.
No need for apologies. You've done nothing wrong.
I want to get better at being human, I swear. It's just really hard to know where to begin.
Do you think you could take it off now?
Jiminy asks.
I brought a change of clothes just in case.
Tiana offers, holding out a purple blouse and a frilly green skirt. Ariel fidgets with the tip of her tail for a few moments.
No, I don't feel right without it. We all want you to be comfortable in your own skin, Ariel.
Queen Eleanor adds kindly.
Especially since we're all able to relate in one way or another.
Human clothing is the first step to full adjustment. But if that's too much for today, we can take it more slowly.
Jiminy says reassuringly. The door opens then, and Aurora pokes her head into the room.
This is Morph, right? Like, where people come when their own sessions got canceled?
Not my original intentions, but...
Jiminy gestures helplessly at Cinderella and Jack, who exchange grins.
Perfect.
Aurora whips around and pulls someone into the room, who stumbles and then rights herself on unsteady feet clad in shiny black Mary Janes.
Alice,
Jack stands up and helps her into the empty chair next to him.
what are you doing here?
I found that one loitering under one of the tables in my room, and we're about to start the dream session in there, so I brought her here instead.
Aurora explains.
Dormant, resisting existence amongst mortals.
Queen Eleanor whispers to a confused Mulan.
I've been to a couple of their meetings. Rather quiet bunch, I'd say.
All right, Aurora, thanks.
See you around, Jim.
Aurora's only just left the room again when all of a sudden Alice leaps out of her chair.
I'm late for late. Oh no, very, very late.
She checks her pocket watch, and her eyes seem to bulge out of her skull. She whirls around to face Jim.
Where is the late session?
What's the late session?
Pinocchio asks quietly.
Lacking average timekeeping etiquette.
Cinderella replies under her breath.
I went to a session once.
The late session was canceled, Alice.
Jiminy says gently.
When was it canceled?
A few hours ago.
Why did they cancel it?
I'm not sure. I believe it was because your therapist couldn't make it. Something about falling asleep.
Dr. Van Twinkle's always asleep anyway.
Alice snaps impatiently.
But when was it?
When was what?
The session.
It's been cancelled.
But when was it?
4 in the afternoon.
Alice's jaw drops and she pulls out her pocket watch again and gazes at it for a long time.
Oh.
She says quietly.
Oh.
I think we've had enough excitement for one day.
Jiminy says, looking anxiously at Alice.
Let's go around the circle and state their name and condition, and then we can call it a day. Please start us off, Your Majesty.
Queen Eleanor, body dysphoria resulting from transformation into human form from bear form.
Pinocchio, BD due to transformation into human form from wood form.
Tiana, BD due to transformation into human form from frog form.
Naveen, and ditto. Ariel, BD due to transformation into human form from mermaid form.
There's a brief pause and Jiminy says,
You 3 may go as well as if you wish, even though this isn't your session. Everyone deserves a chance to be heard.
Cinderella volunteers to go first.
So I'm Cinderella, and I suffer from visual delusions. They're not hallucinations because I simply misinterpret visual stimuli instead of believing something is there in the absence of a stimuli.
What do you misinterpret?
Ariel asks. Cinderella laughs in an effort to diffuse the awkwardness.
Well, I think these
She holds out the squirming mouse still in her grasp.
are horses. I'm working on changing that by carrying one of these around wherever I go. I can carry mice in my hand, but not horses, so that helps me believe that what I see is actually what I see.
That must be hard.
Jack says sympathetically.
You're strong, Sydney.
Thanks.
She smiles shyly.
All right, Jack, you go, and then Alice.
Jiminy says.
Okay, so I'm Jack, and I did actually go up a beanstalk and kill a giant who lived in the sky, but every doctor I've seen says there's nothing actually wrong with me, but that I should go to therapy anyway, so here I am.
He shrugs.
Alice?
Jiminy nods.
I'm Alice and I have chronophobia. It means fear of time in Greek. I have a specific phobia of being late.
I feel that.
Cinderella says. Alice nods, looking relieved.
My doctor says that I developed this fear due to my PTSD.
All right. Thank you all for sharing. We'll meet again same time next week. Travel safe.
Jiminy looks around the room at the group breaking up into chattering 2s and 3s and silently congratulates himself on what he thinks has been a job well done. He watches Naveen put his arm around Tiana, at Mulan laughing with Queen Eleanor. And he thinks about the day that Morph will disband. The day will come when the people in this room will no longer see each other on a regular basis to share stories of happiness, of sadness or anger, of recovery and relapse. And he thinks that, most importantly, they'll all end up okay. Alice and Cindy and even Jack, who, as Jiminy watches, slips one very shiny golden pocket watch into his jacket.